There's one additional thing I was going to mention. That was basically the problem on the front line was helping the Army was because it had lots to do with the American officers who were the instructors, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
After I observed the conditions there, I did talk to the officers who were supposed to be instructors with those units and asked them why they hadn't done something about it and why they hadn't done something better with their machine guns that put them on final protective lines and so forth. They said, well, they didn't have any instruments to do that, didn't have everything that they needed. I said, look, go before I came from, we didn't need it, but we laid them on and we fired the damn thing so we could find out where the shots were going to go. We know, and if you've got to do that, do it. But I said, first you got to get all your machine guns so they can fire. But it didn't work out. Another thing, hold on, baton, we kept getting these messages from McCarthy, that hundreds of planes and thousands of men were on their way. And of course, basically that didn't help the morale because we all knew that wasn't the case. We knew about Hawaii and knew we were probably dead pigeons over there.
So that was MacArthur's this way. He thought of keeping morale.
I
he knew better than that.
I think it had an adverse effect. And there was a lot of laughter about it.
Yeah.
So let's see where I became president then. I guess April 8th, we ordered to lay down our arms. And then interestingly enough, I said it that night that, of course, they were going up ammunition depots and all that kind of thing, but I knew that there had been an earthquake at some time down there. And it wasn't verified until I came back to Philippines and saw that there was an earthquake on the baton that night because the whole ground was just shaking. I just knew that the going up of those ammunition depots wasn't calling the shakes that it didn't cause the shakes that I felt. Of course, we told put down our arms and moved towards the highway. Of course, we were already at the highway. Our headquarters, we went 400 yards from the highway, so we walked over the highway. And the officers in my group, soldiers and told me to get over the highway and lay down their arms, stack their arms so that Japanese could see them. And I should say we saw the white flag go up further on. The general came was supposed to meet the Japanese. And finally the Japanese came, I guess, around noon. April 9th, I was in south of Cab Cabin after that we had down on south of the Longview River. We tried to establish our last position. And but the Japanese soldiers came up and they told us to get on the road and they pointed out that knew what they wanted us to do and start heading out. Well, we didn't go very far. We heard the fellow come through. Only a few open areas there. And machine guns set up all around them. I guess they had 10 or 1,500 people probably in this ringed area. And which didn't help what was going to happen. But the inspector opened up those machine guns and that they put us back on the road and start marching. And of course, nobody had any idea where we were going to march to or what was going to happen. Nobody told you anyway. And it was hot. Couldn't get any water. I can't remember now precisely now where we stayed. I got left on the 9th and April got into our prison camp on April 15th in O'Donnell. And one night I well remember we spent on the road. The other nights we were crowded in these small areas where they tell you now you may sit down and rest for the night, but you didn't have any room. to lay down. Nobody could lay down. There wasn't any room. And of course they weren't feeding you. They made it hard for you to get any water. And
how were you doing since you've been wounded and you weren't?
Oh, I'd recovered from my wound. Unfortunately, I got malaria the last day of the war.
Oh.
I came down with shell fever. Unfortunately, somebody had some quinine there, and I was able to knock it at that point in time. But on the march out, if I hadn't gotten malaria, I wouldn't have gone. I would have taken off the hill. I know I wouldn't, but I just tried to in my mind, what would I do? I don't have any quinine. you could have gotten off in the march.
Mm-hmm.
They have got maybe guards every people in a yard. And marching at night, you just take right on off, and then no problem. Of course, you had to be able to survive once you got out there, but you knew the Filipinos were pretty friendly. Somehow or other, I had a bottle of iodine. I remember too. Don't even have any idea how I got it. Don't have any recollection, but I knew that would be good for the water that you could get. And every time I got a little bit of water, I put a little bit of iodine in it. And it's kind of funny. I never really could get the difference there. But I guess I remember my first experience on the march. But we were walking down the road, the Japanese army trying to move in, get ready to take Corregidor, and we were trying to move out, and trying to get us out of there. And as we were walking along the road, the Japanese soldiers hitting every other one of us, so we were ready to rifles by. Fortunately, I was the other one. I just sort of, that sort of nonsense was going on. And of course, these Filipinos, they had no discipline whatsoever. Told them. And of course, there's no way that officers can control this kind of situation. It's a real rebel in arms. We try to tell them, but of course most of them didn't speak that good English, so you shouldn't drink this kind of water. That's the kind of water that they were able to get. And of course the Japanese weren't going to let you get any water. It's very good if they could avoid it. But if you're well disciplined and water disciplined and so forth, you figured out what you had to do, and you soon figured out after you see them shoot a few Filipinos that didn't have any discipline to get out of line right in the area of a Japanese soldier and just get shot trying to get water. And you learn that you want to make sure that those guys were far enough away that they weren't going to bother you. So in order to get your water, get a little bit of water and get out, all I carried was, all I had was a canteen cup and the bottle of iodine. And one of the camps early on, I don't know, it was probably the Epic guy, where he stayed the night. And Colonel Earl, who was the subjective commander I had mentioned, trying to carry a big old musette bag, through World War II. What the officers came back then, probably weighed 40, 50 pounds. He was a big man, but he was fat. And we got into Africa. I told him before I could go, I said, "Come, you better get rid of that." I said, "You don't know how far we're going to walk." And I said, "I'm not going to be able to help you carry it." Oh, I said, "I'm going to get this where we're going." I said, "Tell me where we're going. You better just get rid of it and do the best you can." "No, I'm going to carry it." We got
what do you have in it?
I have blankets and maybe and some food. I don't know what else he had in it. We got into Africa, and Mrs. Forniash, she says, "I can't make it." And I said, "Can't make it anymore." I said, "Well, apparently the Japanese had announced that anybody that was sick couldn't march any farther to report over to a certain little Nipa hut, and they would haul them in by truck." So when we left that morning, and saw where they were talking about it, and there's a place to go over there. That's why they say they're going to take you out since you can't walk. And so we went over there, and I went on the march. And I was later told that they kicked him back out in the line, made him go out, and he went out ahead, and he never did show up in prison camp anyway.
He didn't show up?
No, I was told that that's what happened to him. I didn't see it, so I don't really know. If I saw any number of Filipinos shot on the way.
The Japanese treat an officer any different from
basically worse.
Worse, yeah.
So, depends where you were and what the circumstances were. It was dramatic now. The food wasn't as bad as the water. It was a water problem. And the Philippines in that hot weather, it was awful. And of course we were suffering malnutrition before we ever surrendered. We had cases of very, very malnutrition among the American troops, and my Lord, among the Filipino army, it was even worse. I remember trying to get those Filipinos to do things that I wanted them to do while we were trying to get our position established. And they'd say, "But sir, I'm so hungry and I'm so weak." But I said, "Well, we're going to have to do it anyway." But in any event, I've never been able to blame it all on the Japanese, because we weren't very well prepared for what happened, and we were in bad shape. We were on less than 2 meals a day. I bet you don't get 1,500 calories a day at that much. Even as an officer. And I don't, the Philippine Army soldier, I don't think you can get that much. And his was all rice.
How long had that gone on before?
At least 2 months. We would have fallen of our own weight. We'd wait another month or 6 weeks because we ran out of food. It just wasn't, everything that was edible was being eaten. So, but anyway, finally got in San Fernando. That was our last night. Spent the last night in San Fernando. And got us up the next morning. They put us on these railroad cars, and little box cars, and about the size of this area here, and then crowd everybody in, push them in as hard as they could push them. And of course, you couldn't move. And then they shut the doors, and of course, the next morning, when you get started at night, it was pushing in the dark. If they'd had the officers got in the airport, the sun came out, might not have been so bad, but didn't even start until the sun came out, and the sides of the cars got hot, and people started, well, first of all, we didn't know whether the air in that darn thing. Finally, when you arrived, you could see there was some space around the top, at least there's some air coming in there. But people are in such bad shape, they died standing up. They're just packed in there like sardines. As far as I know, I don't know how many people died, but there were a lot died on that trip from San Fernando to Caicos.
How long did it take?
Probably 4 or 5 hours, something like that. Maybe 6 hours. We got in, well, we got in there that evening, so it must have been something. We spent on there 8 or 10 hours. We got in there, Caicos that evening, and spent the night right at that place, Caicos. Any number of people were dead. They were wondering where to fall down because of the incident. I understand, and I think that was the only group that they ever shut the doors on. Later, I think they'll put a guard and open the doors. But, anyway, I got into, next day we went on into O'Donnell, and this pompous little Japanese commandant of that camp with O'Donnell greeted us with words something like this, that America is our enemies forever and ever. This is the first phase of a 100 years war. My children will fight your children. We'll fight you again and again until we finally defeat you. That's what he said. Almost exactly those words that he said. And I said to whoever was beside me, I don't remember who it was, and obviously the only parent don't expect to win the first phase of this war. Of course, now I think maybe he's talking about an economic war, which they appear to be winning. Anyway, well, and of course, water was a problem there. In one faucet, we had about 6,000 Americans. And you go down and you spent your day, you were with your friends, a bunch of canteens down there just trying to get a little bit of water. And giving you a little bit of rice, and people started dying like flies. And Americans finally got dying 60 a day in this camp. And the Filipinos are down 400 a day, 4 or 5, 600. They were across the road from us. They'd separated the Filipinos from Americans. I don't know. And Japanese finally said that wasn't a very good idea. We died too fast. And I've always said one of the things I always remembered was the burial detail that they brought those, which they had them in army blankets, and they walked along the ridge line or something, kept going down up there and see that line of 2 people there on either end of a army blanket with a body, and they just got a common grave and pushed them all in about 2 or 3 feet deep and covered it back up. While I was there, I think somewhere in there, there's 6,000 to 7,000 people. Americans got in there, and we had about 1,200 that died in April 15th and June 1 when I left there and went to Bacuan, or fixed to Bacuan. And there we met up with people they brought from Corregidor. And so I guess it must have been, I don't know, 13,000, 15,000 people in Bacuan. Now, they left us pretty much alone inside the camp. They just didn't feed you. in O'Donnell, and that's about the same way it was in Tennesseans. Although periodically it would give us what we call the sun cure. Just for no reason to get you out in the sun, they'd sit there. And this always, I looked at the malaria. Someone bring my malaria back. And of course, there was no medication. We had a so-called hospital, but they didn't have any medicine. They just went there to die. And reached the point where I didn't have any quinine, and of course my friends had some and given me the quinine, and reached the point where they didn't have any. And yeah, it got so bad that I decided to go over to the so-called hospital and just see if by chance I could get some. And I went over there, and of course they didn't have any quinine. And I was over there, I guess 3 or 4 days, shaking the building down with my chills and fever. And this Wesley Stuckey from Appleton, Wisconsin, he'd been in my unit over there in the Philippines. He trudging over there, and he had 2 5-grain tablets of Forniash. And he gave me those and knocked my chill and fever, and I kept myself back to the main camp. While I was, I guess somebody might be interested. I lived in a little. What Filipino I'm used it for, I'm not too sure. It was building 20 feet square or something like that. We were right along the road at the fence. The Japanese guardhouse was just across the road, and off to our right, maybe 20, 30 yards. One night, apparently soldiers had gone outside the camp through barbed wire to get something to eat. And they got caught coming back in, 9 of them. And they tied them to posts right along where I was. Each one of them to a post, and both hands and feet. And it was morning, and long about evening at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock. One of them worked his hands and feet loose, and when a caravel cart came between him and the Japanese guard shack, he broke loose and just ran to a water spigot and to get a drink of water. And with that, of course, the Japanese caught him, cut the others down from where they had him tied. Took 5 of them in where we were to have us see them where they could dig their graves. 4 of them over to the hospital where they're allegedly to dig their graves, and they shot them right then and there. And, so while we were at Cabana 1, of course, they had divided us up into what we call blood brother groups, where one escapes, the other 9 going to be shot. So you're in a blood brother group. Yeah. So I guess all of them had the same arrangements. We all had agreed. I think everybody had the same agreement that anybody was going to take off, that would be okay. But let the other 9 know. So we have to get a start too. Yeah, we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't do anything to stop it. But, so, as far as I know, nobody did that at Command One. However, a friend of mine had a work detail out from Command One, and they had taken him out on the job, and I don't remember what it was. He told me, but in any event, one of the soldiers escaped, and they didn't have a blood brother group at that point in time. So they came to him, wanted to know who the 9 were going to be shot. So he finally got him to let him go to Manila to talk to the people down there. That was sort of impossible. They didn't establish their blood brother groups. So they let him go to Manila, and they finally agreed that they'd take 5. He put up to him when you get about 5. He said, well, you just have to take 3 on either side of the roster where that man is on the roster. I guess he probably knew it wasn't him. He didn't say that. I didn't ever ask him. And they shot them. But of course, people are dying from all kinds of diseases. Primary disease was diarrhea and dysentery. A lot of them had dysentery. That Command One, at O'Donnell, it was pathetic. Couldn't believe what you were seeing. People defecating nothing but blood. And they just had slit trenches, and occasionally one would even fall in. He's so weak. You know, first you sent him flies. You know, something else. That's, Commanders 1 was a little bit better, but then gave more food. And they continued to give you sun treatment. But other than that, the guards pretty much stayed outside the compound. In October of 42, Coach Colonel McKee, who was my boss in Baton, came up to me, and he was a classmate of Johnson, who later became Chief of Staff of the Army. And Johnson was sort of in charge of the Commandant 1. So if we had a commanding officer, at least he was the lead American. And he told me that he was on the list, and I was on the list to go to Japan. And he could, of course, get us off the list. I said, no, Colonel, you leave me on that list. Because the doctor told me I need to get out of that climate. The only good chance I had was to get out of that climate. But I told Jason, I said, I don't want to be here when the Americans come back in here, and the airplanes are out there flying and bombing, and submarines are out there firing their torpedoes. And he said, no, he says, I'm going to sweat it out here. They're not going to let you sweat it out here. They're going to get you in Japan. No, I said, I'm going to sweat it out here. It's not going to happen, but you just leave my name on there. And he left mine on, because he had his taken off, and he got killed on the bombing one of the boats that they're taking him up there off. So that doesn't show I'm smart, but it's just lucky. And I, of course, having had the malaria, that's the last attack of malaria I had was on the ship when I got. And boy, that was a boat ride. They took us out of Commandant 1 and took us down Manila Bay and put us on an old Japanese freighter, the Nagata Maru. Put us down in the hold in the tropics. And had it crowded, so everybody, no place for everybody to lay down. Some would have to stand, some sit, and sometimes somebody could lay down. Got 5-gallon honey buckets to the latrine. One meal a day up at rice ball, hot. You can't imagine that. And occasionally they put the cover over the hole. And then you didn't think you'd ever get to see the day. And we spent 20 days, or 21 days on that fight. And how part of it was in at Formosa, because they thought the submarines had started to attack. And they had some, when that only got at Maru, they had some field artillery pieces strapped on the bow and the stern. And you could hear them firing those sort of things. And what good they would do if there were submarines out there. But in any event, they apparently thought there were submarines. We were in at Formosa for at least 2 or 3 days. And finally we got up to Moji in Japan. And I remember when I walked off that ship, I fell flat on my face. I was so weak I could hardly walk. I still don't know how I made it. They took us to Osaka and took us to a factory. The Otagawa Moonshaw. And we hadn't completed where we were supposed to stay, so we lived down below in the smoke and the dirt and the grime for several days. And I remember the first night we were there, a young officer by the name Smith, sleeping right next to me, died. And he was a Stanford graduate. And I thought, oh, what a waste of life. This is ridiculous. And his was a plague or something. His mouth was just practically turned inside out. Anyway, I was assigned to the what you call the Mekihan detail, and that was.
What was the point in taking you from the Philippines to Japan?
Oh, they didn't want the Americans to capture us down there. They captured us in the Philippines. I knew they were never going to. We were at least bargaining chips for them. If worse came to worse.
Yeah.
And, I was confident in my own mind that they wouldn't leave any Americans there. Now they did recover a few there who were too sick for them trying to move out. They didn't recover any healthy people. Anybody could move. In this factory, it was an old run-down factory and had several different divisions among it. They made, in my area, Mekihan was an old, obsolete galvanizing plant. And they make a couple, 3 diesel motors in one other area, and they welded some 50-gallon drums to barrel in another area, and had a little pig iron factory in another area. Only had half a dozen, maybe 8 or 10 divisions such as that. Yeah. And I was in the galvanizing, Mechihan, and I was on the business end of the yo-yo pole. I was, because I was a captain, I was in charge of people that went out there. On my detail, I had 14. And I had to learn a little bit of Japanese or get knocked around to explain me to tell them what they're supposed to do. And I didn't know more Japanese maybe. But you begin to learn. So, anyway, I was lucky to get on this detail because finally, of course, we lived right above where it was only detail lived above where we were, on the second floor. And so, of course, people started dying, and I said, let my boss, the Japanese boss down there, know that we were starving to death. We had to have some food to even be able to work. And every time somebody would die, because I would know it, they were going to take him out. I'd take him over and say, hey, there's another one. There's not enough food. You got to have some food. And so they started bringing in bags of rice for us, and we cooked it out in the chow. And actually, two of them, the boss and a little Japanese man, had a son in Guatemala at that time. Of course, he hadn't heard anything, know whether he was alive or dead. But they would get a little extra ration every now and then on the job, a little bit of ice cream or tempura or something like that. And my boss, and this little fellow who tended another boiler, would always bring either me or one of the people on my detail, take it back to the boiler down in my furnace I tended, and give them their ration. So at least there were some that were pretty sympathetic. So I was there for about June until I got there in November, 1st November, yes. And left there in June, so I was there about 8 months in this factory. And,
okay, that was June of what, 1944?
Left there in June of 43.
43.
In June of 43, I was in the factory for 8 months. We had 400 who'd gotten into that factory. At the time I left, 104 had died. I still had my detail. The rest of it, they got the extra food on the job. Now, some of the others did too, but not all of them. We got our first Red Cross box. One Red Cross box divided between 3 of us at Yodogawa. And that's all we got there. One box divided between 3 of us at Christmas time in 1942. So, but in June of 43, they sent about 45, 50 officers in at this factory. And there was 350 enlisted people, I guess, something in that order. We moved us out of, took all but about 4 or 5 officers and moved us down to what we call the officers' propaganda camp on the island at Zensuji, on the island of Shikoku. And when we got there, of course, we were in pretty bad shape here. But they had the Americans they had captured in Wake, Guam, and off the Houston, the ship that had sunk over there, and off was a couple of submarines, and off of the Canopus and Navy tenders, and you had some Dutch officers, POWs from South Pacific, and English and British from Hong Kong, Singapore. All in all, we had about 700 officers there, large portion of them American, and then the enlisted people from Wake and Guam. When we got there, they were getting at lunch a loaf of bread. No, that must have been at least 6 ounces instead of rice. And they had beans in their rice. When they got rice for the morning meal and the evening, they had beans in it. About the first protein we had seen. And of course, they were all in pretty good shape. They had been treated nice. And they were even getting the Osaka Mainichi and Tokyo Times, 2 English newspapers coming in there, because then the Japanese were still going great, Of course, you could keep up with the news. Yeah, but when the things started going against them, they quit putting it out. But we did have a Navy man who could